Hey everybody, welcome back to Drawbridge Finance. My name's Levi Woods, and I'm not a financial advisor. I don't work in the financial industry, and this is an opinion channel about money. Now, for those of you who have followed me for a while, you probably know that I have this theory about how much money we spend. Almost everybody you know spends relative to what they earn. So if you start making more money, then you start spending more money. Let's just take a quick example at somebody that makes $100,000 a year. If they take $20,000 or 20% of their income and they put that towards the principal portion of their mortgage or to their long-term retirement funds, that will be an investment portion. The rest of the money is likely to be spent. Almost everybody I know, if they have whatever their account is worth, if they have like $1,000 in their savings account, likely a year from now, they're probably gonna have that same $1,000 in their savings account. That's unfortunately how we work as humans. If we have more money, we just generally spend more money. If we get down to our limit, our personal limit, then we stop spending that money. It's crazy how we work like that, but that is why it's so important to pay yourself first. For this scenario, what we're looking at is we're gonna say, what amount do I need to actually retire? If a person makes $100,000 and they put away 20% or 25% or 30% or 35% of that income, then they are likely going to spend the rest. So I've built this fairly complex chart that's going to show you exactly what will happen over time with the investments. Let's take a look at it. So in this chart, basically we're trying to figure out what year we can retire. We're looking at a column that shows 2018. Some of the assumptions that we have to make in this video is that we're going to have an expected annual income increase of 2%. We also know that there's going to be some sort of inflation, so our money is going to be devaluing over time. So the expected annual inflation increase is set at 2.2%. I've done tons of videos on this before. The expected annual rate of return on investment, putting it 7%. For anybody out there that doubts that we can make a 7% return, you really need to watch my video. I'll put the link up here in this corner so you can see exactly why we can make a 7% return. In fact, I should probably be putting 7.8% return in that box because that's the actual rate of return that we've achieved on average since 1972 through a multitude of crashes. It's really easy to get a 7% return. That is below the average by 0.8%. We're also going to assume in this scenario that the current investments are zero. Taking a person that has an annual income of $100,000, if they pay themselves first and put annual contributions up as a percentage of their income of 25% of this $100,000, their investment contributions will be $25,000, which means they'll likely spend the rest of this money. So they will have annual expenses of around $75,000. Their current investments in 2018 will be worth $25,000. So basically we have zero, add 25,000, get 25,000. If this person was to retire this year, the theoretical sustainable dividend yield on a 7% return is $1,400 per year. So somebody that's used to making $100,000 a year and spending $75,000 is not going to be able to survive on dividend yield of $1,400. It's just not sustainable. So what we need to do is we need to look at this chart in the whole. So let's populate out the whole chart for 30 years. Now using these numbers, each year the wages are going to increase. So next year in 2019 they make $102,000, in 2020 they make $104,000, and so on and so forth. That is based on this 2% increase. So looking at any one of these columns, we can see that next year their contributions at 25% of their income will be slightly more, 25% of $102,000. Their annual expenses will also be slightly more because they just spend the rest of that money. Their current investments will be worth this $25,000 times the 7.8% return plus the $25,500. So next year, the theoretical sustainable yield will be $3,049. Now notice that I've actually taken this $54,000 and I've used it to subtract the percentage. I'll show you the formula right here if you're interested, but taking the amount of investments and then timesing it by a 7.8% return subtracted by the rate of increase. So you're actually only looking at, if we change this to 7%, then this theoretical sustainable yield is actually 7% minus 2.2. It's actually only 4.8%. So 4.8% return being drawn out of this 54,000 will give you a sustainable yield of $2,500 per year. So now we just populate that out, and I've made this chart so it highlights in green as soon as the theoretical sustainable yield of this 4.8% is greater than the expenses that this person would incur, then we know that that's the year that they can retire. Starting with zero from today, investing 25% of their money, this person would be able to retire in 2046. What I'm going to show you next is I'm going to expand this chart down a little bit. I'll show you how much sooner you can retire if you invest 30% or 35% of your income. Let's take a look at 30%. And let's take a look at 35%. So looking at this column, after 21 years of investing at 35% of your income, your sustainable income of $103,000 would outweigh your current theoretical expenses of $98,000. Of course, you're also living on a lot less right off the top. This is basically the theory that you're just not spending as much. You know, a penny saved is a penny earned. Like even in the first year of 2018, your annual expenses are only $65,000 compared to $75,000. The person investing 35% of their income actually has $10,000 less in this very first year. And subsequently, they have less money in every single year because they're putting more money into their retirement. But they're getting to that retirement age faster. This is where the variables come in. The annual inflation rate right now is quite high, 2.2% in Canada, 2.4% in the United States. The expected is actually only 2%. So if it is in fact only 2%, over the next 25 years, that will bring the number of years down. The other thing is that we're looking at this 7% return. Now, 7% is super easy to get. If you're not getting 7%, you're doing something completely wrong. 7.8 is the average. So if we do 7.8, even sooner you're going to be retiring. If somebody that's investing 35% of their income and starting with nothing today, they literally will be able to retire in 17 years, which means a 23-year-old with no investments making $100,000 a year, investing $35,000 in this first year, and then increasing that slightly year after year, will be able to retire on their 40th birthday no problem at a 7.8% return, which is the average. Now, me personally, I've actually returned 13.8% doing very, very simple investing. I've laid out my 14 personal investment rules. I've made a video about it right here. It's one of the most important videos that anybody should watch on my channel. If you haven't watched it, you should. If you've watched it before, you should probably revisit it. Make that a checklist. If your investments aren't doing every single one of those 14 rules, you should consider changing it. They've worked for me, and it's the reason that I am going to retire on my 40th birthday. A 13.8% return was an easy return since 2003. So for the last 15 years, I have returned 13.8% per year. I'm going to change that number right now so you can see how much that affects someone. In this scenario, if someone was able to copy me by following my 14 personal investment rules, if they invested 25% of their income of $100,000, they would be able to hit the retirement age in 11 years. That's how easy it is to do. 25% is a big commitment. Maybe we should change this to 20%. If we change it to 20%, they can still do it in 13 years. Even as low as 15% of your income, you can retire, fully retire, making $127,000 a year after only 16 years. Anyways, the math is all here. Remember guys, this is basic mathematics. We just have to follow the rules, diversify our portfolios, and get rich together. Thanks so much for watching. Join me next time. See you soon.